Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to discuss all the books I want to read in July 2022. As I've been doing for all of this year so far, I'm going to start off by discussing fiction before moving into talking about all the nonfiction books on this TBR. So the first novel that I plan on reading in July is going to be my classic book of the month, and that's Romola by George Eliot. This book is set in Renaissance Italy, Florence specifically, and in it we follow the daughter of a scholar, and we see how her marriage to a very duplicitous man threatens to destroy everything she cares about. As I mentioned in my Classics TBR video when I was discussing this novel, even though this is probably George Eliot's least popular novel, it seems to be the one that she herself was the proudest of, which I think is really interesting. It's described as being very ambitious. It's certainly a very long book, and I'm very curious to see what I end up thinking about this one. Now, normally this would be the moment in my TBR when I talk about books that I'm reading for any projects that I'm working on. But it just so happens that I actually just very recently finished a project that I was working on. I wanted to read through Meg Wollitzer's entire backlist. I wanted to read all of her backlist novels, at least all the ones written for adults, and I just finished the last one, so I'm done. But instead of jumping into the next project that I want to do, I always have a next project, I want to actually take a moment and reward myself for a job well done. And the way I'm choosing to do that is with a reread of The Interestings. This book is about a group of teenagers who meet at a performing arts summer camp in the 1970s. They build really close-knit friendships during that summer camp, and then we see how those friendships extend into their adult lives. We get to see this group of friends go from a bunch of teenagers into a bunch of adults trying to make their way through the world. This is the book that made me fall in love with Meg Wolitzer. This is one of my all-time favorite novels, but surprisingly enough, I've never reread it. I have not picked this book up again since I read it for the first time in the spring of 2015. So it's been 7 years since I've read this book. This isn't a situation where I'm trying to test this novel in order to see if it holds up to a reread or if it will remain a favorite. I am 100% confident that this is going to still be an all-time favorite after this reread. I think I'm going to like it just as much as I did back in 2015, if not more. I think there's actually every chance that I'm going to like it better the second time. I just thought it would be interesting to see Meg Wollitzer's progression as an author. I've read all those backlist books now. I can see how she built up to this level of writing, this level of characterization in what I consider to be her best book. I'm also reading this because I want to treat myself. I read all those backlist books, some of which I liked a whole lot more than others, so I deserve this. Something else I feel deserving of is some fun, because it's summertime. And even though I'm not normally the biggest reader of thrillers, there's something about a hot summer day that just makes me crave a good thriller, probably because of their association with beach reads, because they're such page turners. But I decided I'm going to satisfy that craving with The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. This book is about a classical musician, his priceless violin that he got as a family heirloom, then the theft of that violin, and after that, all these family members of the musician coming out of the woodwork trying to claim the violin as their own now that they know it's valuable. This one I have heard so many good things about. I think it's going to be just the ticket for my thriller craving. But another one I have heard great things about and yet still haven't read for whatever reason is The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. This is a coming-of-age story starring a young girl who grows up surrounded by words since her father is on a team of people working to create the Oxford English Dictionary. I am a word nerd myself. One of my favorite nonfiction books of last year was a memoir written by a former Merriam-Webster editor. So I have been really looking forward to this one. But now let's talk about nonfiction books, beginning with two extremely popular nonfiction titles that I have been sleeping on for no good reason. Those two books are The Radium Girls by Kate Moore and The Disappearing Spoon by Sam Kean. The Radium Girls tells the story of a group of women in the 20th century whose job it was to paint time-telling devices with a luminous paint that contained radium, a highly radioactive substance. It was considered to be safe for a period of time. We now know it definitely is not. And being exposed to radium in the way that they were and for the duration that they were meant that these women faced extremely serious health complications later on down the line. And not only that, they faced legal battles with their former employers because their employers refused to take any responsibility for the health problems that these women were facing. I have read abbreviated versions of this story in now 2 different books, but I've never read the full story. So I'm looking forward to reading about all the details about these women and their fight for justice. And then The Disappearing Spoon is more strictly a science book, but instead of discussing just one element, radium, in this book he discusses all of them. This book is a kind of tour through the periodic table of the elements, and in Sam Kean's trademarked way, I am sure it is going to be equal parts fascinating and hilarious. I have read a couple of his books in the past, but surprisingly enough, I've never read this one, which is his most popular book. I can't believe, as a nonfiction lover, I have not yet read either of these 2 books. So in July, I am rating that wrong. I'm also hoping to read a backlist memoir that I've had my eye on for a while. It's called Miracle Country by Kendra Atlee-Work. And from what I've read about this book, it looks like this is part memoir and part biography of the California desert. It seems like there's going to be a lot of nature writing in here. And because the author discusses this arid land on which she formed part of her identity, it seemed like it would be a good summer read for me. And then finally, speaking of summer, the last book on my TBR is another science book called The Joy of Sweat by Sarah Everts. And this is a book all about the strange biological function that most human bodies experience, and some human bodies experience profusely, especially when it is extraordinarily hot outside, like it has been in Pittsburgh lately. This one not only fits the season, but also I'm on a little bit of a fitness journey right now, so I've been doing more than my fair share of sweating at the gym lately. And since I'm working out so much, I thought it would be cool to learn more about our process of getting cool. So those are the books that I'm hoping to read in July, less any books that I will be reading for my written reviews, which as usual, I'll just hold off on talking about until that review is out there in the world and I can point you in its direction in case you want to read that review. All the books that I did mention in today's video will be linked in the description box below for your clicking convenience. And at the bottom of that exact same description box, you can find links to everywhere you can find me around the internet, like Goodreads and Instagram, the 2 places where I'm the most active, if you would like to keep up with what I am reading and writing about right now. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.